While at the visitor center, waiting for the roads to open, I talked to some of my fellow travelers and listened to their plans and what they were going to do. The thing about Arches is there's the scenic drive. It's a 25-mile drive each way, and you can see a lot of the park just from the roadside pullouts. And so I figured the very least is I was going to make that drive. And some of the people recommended some other places, but a lot of these people were younger than I am, and they had their more aggressive and adventurous hikes. The most famous arch in Arches is Delicate Arch, but they were saying it could be a difficult, slippery hike as you get near the top of the climb. I figured, well, I'll see how the rest of the day goes, but that may not be really good for somebody my age. And I have no regrets about the places that I visited except one. Double Arch is very accessible. I just didn't have time for it. And so Arches is one of those beautiful places that I absolutely love, that I absolutely have to come back to. And if you visit it, you will too. I may come in the off season, sometime maybe in March and April. Just a comment, something that impacted me was some of the trails and parts of the road were closed not only because of the construction I've already mentioned, but there had been a lot of flooding due to the fact that there had been heavy rains a few weeks before. And so, you never know exactly what you're going to come across in a national park, but man, what a beautiful place, well worth visiting.
Leaving the Arches Visitor Center, you climb up to the main elevation of the park, and very quickly you come across the courthouse towers. And I was just blown away. They're awesomely beautiful. I took a lot of time just to stop and do some photographs. And there's some features that I have in one of my clips here that I'll show some of the main features. Wow. And then I had already talked to people while I was at the visitor center that were headed all to the Arches. Some of them said, hey, don't miss the walk down into Park Avenue. And they said, it's a pretty easy walk. Well, I made the mistake of starting at the south end of that trail. If I had to do it over again, I would have driven up the road and there's another parking lot and I would have come up that way. I learned in my time in Canyonlands, if you come across something that's beautiful, just take the time and photograph it, and then don't worry about seeing everything in the park. It's impossible, but just enjoy the things that come at you right away if you have a place to park, and I did. I immediately, because of the ever increasing temperature, hiked the trail down through Park Avenue. I have a couple of photos here showing the stairs and the initial portion of the trail from the south end going down. It wasn't that bad. It was just a little more strenuous. I've had some hip replacements, so I have to be a little careful, but I managed it fine. But it was already getting hot. And then I have one over-edited photo. I probably got carried away with the saturation, but it was really pretty down in the canyon, well worth doing. And it was interesting because once I got down there, I pretty much had the place to myself, which was very unusual for the rest of the day at Arches. So I really enjoyed the solitude and the beauty of the canyon. Loved the hike. Came back up later on in the day as I was concerned about getting out before the park closed. As I already mentioned, there's road construction going on, or there was road construction going on, that I came back to this area and redrove it and just took more photos. There are so many things that are easily accessible just from the roadside pullouts. And one of the really nice, easy hikes is Balanced Rock. I highly recommend that. I'll cover that in the next video. Because of the length of in the number of photographs I took at Arches, I will probably break this down into several videos, but right off the bat, 3.6 miles into the park, you come across the Park Avenue viewpoint and trailhead. But keep in mind, that'll be a fairly steep descent just for the initial hundreds of feet. But after that, it's a nice trail. But in the future, if I had to do it over again, I would have parked at the other parking lot and come up the other way. However, the light was much better the way I went with the sun at my back. You'll notice some color differences. I used both the Nikon. I did all that along as well as the Canon, and really pleased with the day. By the time I got back, it was already starting to get toasty, And that's just something to keep in mind. By now, we were in the second week of May, and the temperatures were already starting to warm up. The forecast temperature at Arches that day was going to be 96 degrees. So bring water, bring a hat, but enjoy.